Hey everybody, Dr. A here, and in this video we're going to be talking about units and their importance to us in engineering and science. So to get started, you want to write everything down, okay? This is not a spectator sport. You want to write all of these definitions and sentences down in your own notebook or on your own paper and keep up as we're going through it together. So in engineering, most quantities we deal with have units, okay? So whether we're measuring something or we're weighing something, we have units associated with the quantities we deal with. So we always must include proper units in our calculations. Now, when we're keeping track of units, there are two commonly used unit systems that we see most often. We have the U.S. customary units, which we typically call English units. Now, this is what we deal with most of the time in the United States. The other commonly used system is called the International System of Units, or SI units. This is the system of units that we see most often in other parts of the world, but we do use SI units occasionally in the United States. So because of our education system in the US, we typically learn about both of these unit systems. But again, we see more often U.S. customary units, or what we commonly call English units here in the United States. So the common measurements that we're going to encounter in engineering applications, and you also encounter them in science and just in life in general, but the common measurements we encounter in engineering applications are mass, force, length, area, volume, and time. So again, this is a reminder, you need to write all of this down. Even though I already have all of this stuff written down for us in this video, you need to maybe pause the video and write all of these points down in your notes. So let's scroll down, and here we're going to make a little table that summarizes these some common measurement types that we see in this first column with the U.S. customary base unit and the SI base unit. So we have this table of 3 columns. Again, this middle column, we're going to put the U.S. customary base unit for each of these 4 common types of measurements. So let's get started. Looking at U.S. customary units, okay? What is the base measurement or base unit for the measurement of mass? Now, if you say pounds, that's not quite right. Our U.S. customary base unit for mass is actually called a slug or slugs. You may have heard about that in one of your previous science classes that you've had, but a slug is the base unit of mass. We don't really see this very often in applications in the United States. It comes up every now and then, but more often we measure things based on force. Okay, so for example, when you weigh something, weight is a type of force. All right, so what is the U.S. customary base unit for force? That's a unit you may be more familiar with. Those are pounds. Okay, and we abbreviate it like this. What about length? The U.S. customary base unit for length is inches, okay, which we abbreviate IN. Now, of course, we also have the unit of feet and yards that we see quite often in the United States. Those are also U.S. customary units, but we often see inches as considered the U.S. customary base unit of length. What about time? Well, the U.S. customary base unit for time is seconds, which we abbreviate SEC. Okay, so those are our U.S. customary base units for these 4 common types of measurements. What about the SI base units for these same common types of measurements? Well, the SI base unit for mass is the gram, which we abbreviate G, okay? What about for force? Well, the SI base unit for force is the Newton, which we abbreviate capital N. The SI base unit for length is the meter, which we abbreviate that as M. And the SI base unit for time, like in English units, it is the second. So we're going to say seconds. And typically in SI units, you just see that as a little s, but you could write SEC if you want. Now, if we scroll back up, we said we also have these common measurements that we encounter: area, and volume. Okay, so I didn't put these in our table here, but the reason why I didn't put these in the table, even though they're common and they're important, the units for area and volume just come from the units of length. Okay, so I'm gonna write down a little symbol for us. Let's not scroll down too far yet. I don't want to spoil the surprise, but the symbol, this, you see, this is, I drew this little symbol here that looks like it looks like a triple equal sign. It's 3 horizontal lines, means the phrase has units of. So this is just kind of a math symbol. So we can say area has units of what? Well, area has units of length squared, and volume has units of what? Well, it has units of length cubed. Okay, so area and volume are still important, but they come from length units, either squared or cubed. So that's why I didn't just lump them into this table that we just created. So let's move on. You kind of got a glimpse of something else that we're going to cover, and those are common unit conversions. Common unit conversion. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit, and we're going to take a second and look at what we have here. I've separated our common unit conversions into 2 sections or 2 columns. We have common unit conversions for U.S. customary units. Those are our English units. And we also have common unit conversions for SI units. Okay, so let's start with our U.S. customary units. Again, these are English units. So commonly, we see the unit conversions of 12 inches is equal to 1 foot. 1 yard is equal to 3 feet. So we see that quite often. Another common English unit conversion that we encounter sometimes in engineering is that 1 mile equals 5,280 feet. Okay, and then some other unit conversions that are probably pretty obvious to you. 60 seconds is in 1 minute, and then 60 minutes is in 1 hour. That's pretty common knowledge. In terms of force units, 1 kip is equal to 1,000 pounds. So that's a force unit conversion that maybe you don't see very often, but we use it a lot in engineering. So if you have 1,000 pounds, that's abbreviated as 1 kip. And then similarly, we have 1 ton is 2,000 pounds. All right. So these are, again, common English customary unit conversions. What about on the SI side of things? So SI uses these special prefixes to indicate unit conversions that are based on a multiple of 10 magnitude. So that's one of the great things about the SI system is that we can use what are called SI prefixes to convert between units based on a multiple of 10, okay? So let's go through some of these common SI prefixes. So in the SI system, 1 nano is equal to something times 10 to the minus ninth. So the nano is a prefix. So for example, you can have nanometers. You could have nanonewtons, for example. This is what we call a prefix that is attached to whatever unit of measurement you are dealing with, okay? So when we say times 10 to the negative ninth, we mean 0 point and then 8 zeros and a 1. So if you move this decimal place 9 spaces, we say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You get 1.0 nano somethings, okay? So if you have the word, the prefix nano tacked on to the front of any measurement, it really means times 10 to the negative 9 of that thing, okay? We also have micro. It works, it's still a prefix. So you could have micrometers, which is a micrometer. You could have micronewtons, for example. You could have microseconds. So that's something times 10 to the negative 6. So that's, again, it's a small number. We have milli, which we use little m for. That's something times 10 to the minus third, okay? We have centi, that's something times 10 to the minus second. And then going bigger, if you have a lot of something and you want to use a prefix to represent bigger numbers, we have the prefix kilo, which means times 10 to the times 10 to the positive 3, not minus 3, times 10 to the positive 3. So that's 1,000, right? A kilo is 1,000 somethings. A mega is times 10 to the positive 6. So that's 1,000,000 somethings. And then a giga is times 10 to the positive 9th. That's 1,000,000,000 somethings. And again, these are prefixes. They go in front of the thing you are measuring. It could be length, it could be area, it could be time, whatever. All right, it's just a convenient way to express either really small or really big numbers in a compact fashion. All right, so sometimes we need to convert between these two systems. So oftentimes we may need to go from English to SI or SI to English units. And we really only need a couple of basic conversion factors to go between English and SI units or vice versa, because most things are based, most units of measurement are based on either length or force or sometimes mass. So these are not the only conversion factors between English and SI. There are other conversion factors as well. But the two we see most often in engineering and science is that 1 inch, that's in English units, is approximately equal to 2.54 centimeters, which centimeters, of course, is our SI type of unit. And then on the English side, we have 1 pound is approximately equal to 4.45 newtons. So that's a type of force, okay? And so again, this is just meant to summarize some highlights and some major points in dealing with units. This is not all of it. This is not everything. For example, these are not the only common unit conversions. These are not the only SI prefixes. There are others as well. These are just the ones we see very common. So hopefully this has been helpful to you. If you like this video, please hit like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.